It was a quiet Tuesday morning when the sky turned red. At first, people thought it was just an odd weather phenomenon. But then the ships appeared. Huge, dark shapes blocked out the sun. They hovered over major cities across the globe. New York, London, Tokyo, Mumbai, all faced the same terrifying sight. The world held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. In the United Nations building in New York, world leaders gathered in an emergency meeting. They sat around a large table, faces pale with fear. General Zhang of China spoke first. "We need to act now," he said, his voice firm. "We must show these aliens our strength." The room erupted in heated debate. Some agreed with General Zhang, while others argued for a peaceful approach. As they argued, a loud boom shook the building. Outside, the first attack had begun. Green beams of light shot down from the alien ships. Where they touched, buildings crumbled to dust. People ran screaming through the streets, trying to find shelter. In Washington, D.C., the President of the United States watched the chaos unfold on multiple screens. Her advisors crowded around her, each trying to offer a solution. "Madam President, we need to launch our nukes," said one general. "And risk destroying our own cities," countered another. "We need a more targeted approach." The president raised her hand, silencing the room. "What about our new laser defense system?" she asked. Minutes later, powerful lasers fired at the alien ships from hidden locations around the city. For a moment, hope flared. But then, the unthinkable happened. The lasers bounced off the ships, not leaving even a scratch. Similar scenes played out across the world. In Moscow, tanks rolled through the streets, firing at the ships above. In London, fighter jets screamed through the sky, launching missile after missile. But nothing worked. The alien ships seemed untouchable. As day turned to night, the situation grew more desperate. Reports came in from all corners of the globe. Paris was in flames. The pyramids of Giza had been reduced to sand. The Great Wall of China had a mile-wide gap blasted through its middle. In a secret bunker deep underground, a group of scientists worked frantically. They analyzed every bit of data they could get on the alien ships, looking for any weakness. Dr. Emily Chen, a young physicist, stared at her computer screen. Her eyes widened as she noticed a pattern in the ship's movements. "Look at this," she called to her colleagues. "The ships, they move in a specific way before they fire. If we could predict it." But before she could finish her thought, the bunker shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling as alarms blared. "We need to evacuate," shouted the head scientist. "They found us." As they rushed to escape, Dr. Chen grabbed her laptop. She couldn't leave her research behind. It might be humanity's only hope. Above ground, the world was changing fast. Governments fell into chaos. Millions of people fled their homes, searching for safety. But there was nowhere to hide from the aliens' advanced technology. In space, astronauts on the International Space Station watched helplessly. They saw green flashes light up the Earth's surface, marking each devastating attack. "It's like watching the end of the world," whispered one astronaut, her voice choked with emotion. Back on Earth, in the ruins of what was once New Delhi, a small group of survivors huddled in the remains of a temple. An old man spoke softly to the scared children around him. "Do not lose hope," he said. "Humanity has faced great challenges before. We will find a way." But as night fell and the alien ships continued their relentless attack, hope seemed in short supply. The greatest military powers on Earth had thrown everything they had at the invaders, and nothing had worked. The strange ships hung in the sky, a constant reminder of humanity's helplessness. People everywhere asked the same questions. Why were the aliens here? What did they want? And most importantly, how could they be stopped? As the first day of the invasion came to an end, one thing was clear. If humanity was to survive, they would need to find a solution fast. The clock was ticking, and with each passing hour, more of Earth fell under alien control. The strangest war in human history had begun. And so far, Humanity was losing. As the alien invasion entered its second week, hope was fading fast. The world's armies were in ruins, and major cities lay in smoking rubble. In a hidden underground facility in the Rocky Mountains, the remaining world leaders met to discuss their dwindling options. "We've tried everything," said the French president, his voice heavy with defeat. "Our weapons are useless against their technology." Just then, a commotion erupted outside the meeting room. Raised voices could be heard, followed by the sound of a scuffle. Suddenly, the doors burst open. A small woman with wild, graying hair stormed in, followed by flustered security guards. Her lab coat was stained with coffee, and her eyes glowed with a manic energy. "You need to listen to me," she shouted. "I have the solution." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to the intruder. "Who are you?" demanded the U.S. president. "Dr. Amelia Zhao," the woman replied, straightening her crooked glasses. "And I know how to beat the aliens." For the next hour, Dr. Zhao explained her radical idea. She spoke quickly, her hands waving as she described a ship unlike anything the world had ever seen. It wasn't just a spaceship, she said. It was a living weapon, part machine and part organism. "Imagine a ship that can heal itself," Dr. Zhao said excitedly. "A ship that can adapt to attacks, just like a living creature." The world leaders exchanged skeptical glances. The British Prime Minister spoke up. "Dr. Zhao, this sounds like science fiction," he said gently. "We need real solutions, not fairy tales." Dr. Zhao's face turned red with frustration. "It's not fiction," she insisted. "I've been working on this technology for years. We can combine advanced robotics with genetically engineered organisms. The ship will be alive." The room erupted in argument. Some leaders dismissed Dr. Zhao as a madwoman. Others thought her idea, while crazy, might be their last hope. As the debate raged, a young military officer named Captain Sarah Chen watched Dr. Zhao closely. She saw the desperation in the scientist's eyes, but also the conviction. Quietly, she slipped out of the room. Hours later, after Dr. Zhao had been escorted out, Captain Chen approached her. "I believe you," she said simply. Dr. Zhao looked up, surprised. "You do?" Captain Chen nodded. "My brother was a bioengineer. He talked about similar ideas. I think you're onto something." Together, they hatched a plan. If the world leaders wouldn't listen, they'd have to show them. Over the next few days, Dr. Zhao and Captain Chen worked in secret. They gathered a small team of open-minded scientists and engineers. In an abandoned warehouse, they began building a prototype of Dr. Zhao's living ship. It wasn't easy. Many thought they were wasting precious time and resources. But slowly, something amazing began to take shape. The prototype was small, about the size of a car. Its outer shell looked metallic, but it pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. Inside, a network of organic circuits merged seamlessly with advanced computer systems. "It's alive," Dr. Zhao whispered, touching the ship's surface gently. "And it's learning." Just as they were ready to present their work to the world leaders, disaster struck. An alien ship discovered their hidden facility. As green beams of destruction rained down, Dr. Zhao and her team rushed to save their creation. They loaded the prototype onto a truck and sped away, narrowly escaping as the warehouse collapsed behind them. They drove through the night, dodging alien patrols. Captain Chen used her military contacts to secure them passage to a secret government facility. Finally, exhausted but triumphant, they arrived. The world leaders, who had been evacuated to this last safe haven, were waiting. Dr. Zhao stood before them once again. But this time, she wasn't empty-handed. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said, her voice steady, "I present to you humanity's last hope." She pulled back a tarp, revealing the pulsing, living ship. The room fell silent in awe. For the first time since the invasion began, a spark of hope flickered in the eyes of Earth's leaders. They realized that sometimes the strangest ideas might be the ones that save the world. As dawn broke, plans were already being made. Dr. Zhao's impossible dream was about to become humanity's greatest weapon. The real work was just beginning. The secret underground facility buzzed with activity. Scientists, engineers, and military personnel rushed about, all focused on one goal: bringing Dr. Amelia Zhao's strange vision to life. In the center of the main hangar, a massive structure was taking shape. It looked nothing like a traditional spaceship. Instead, it resembled a giant mechanical tree. Dr. Zhao stood before a group of puzzled officials, pointing at a complex diagram. The outer hull, she explained, tapping the image, will be made of a special metal that can grow and heal, just like tree bark. A general raised his hand. Grow? Metal doesn't grow, Dr. Zhao. She smiled. This one does. We've infused it with engineered plant DNA. It's alive. The room filled with murmurs of disbelief and excitement. Dr. Zhao continued her tour of the ship's unique features. Here, she said, indicating a section of the blueprint, is our rainforest weapon system. Rainforest? Someone asked, confused. Yes, Dr. Zhao nodded enthusiastically. We're recreating Earth's ecosystems as defense mechanisms. The rainforest section will produce a dense, living fog that can confuse enemy sensors and even eat through their hull. As weeks passed, the ship grew larger and more complex. Workers marveled at how sections seemed to sprout and expand on their own. It was unsettling, but also fascinating. One day, a young engineer named Alex was checking the ship's desert section. This area was designed to launch superheated sandstorms at enemy vessels. As Alex examined a panel, he felt something odd. The metal was warm to the touch, almost like skin. Dr. Zhao, he called out, startled. I think it has a pulse. Dr. Zhao rushed over, her eyes shining with excitement. She pressed her hand against the hull and laughed with joy. It's alive, she exclaimed. Truly alive. Not everyone was comfortable with the idea of a living ship. Some workers refused to go near it, claiming it gave them the creeps. Others were in awe, seeing it as a miracle of science. As the ship neared completion, it was time to choose a crew. This proved challenging, as operating the vessel required a unique set of skills. We need botanists as well as pilots, Dr. Zhao insisted. Marine biologists alongside weapons experts. Captain Sarah Chen, who had supported Dr. Zhao from the beginning, was chosen to lead the mission. She assembled an unusual team: a deep-sea explorer, a rainforest researcher, a desert survival expert, and more. The day finally came to name the ship. World leaders gathered for the ceremony, still looking skeptical but hopeful. Dr. Zhao stepped forward. I christened this ship Gaia's Vengeance. As if responding to its name, the ship's hull rippled with a wave of bioluminescent light. The crowd gasped in amazement. With the ship ready, it was time for the first test flight. The huge hangar doors opened slowly, revealing a night sky filled with distant alien ships. Inside Gaia's Vengeance, the crew strapped into stations unlike any they'd seen before. Instead of cold metal seats, they nestled into structures that felt almost like living tissue. Captain Chen took her place at the helm, but instead of a traditional control panel, she faced what looked like a small garden. Dr. Zhao, she called out, uncertain. How do I fly this thing? Dr. Zhao's voice came through a speaker. Feel the plants, Captain. They're connected to the ship's nervous system. Your intentions will guide it. Feeling slightly silly, Captain Chen closed her eyes and placed her hands on the plants. To her shock, she felt an immediate connection. It was as if the ship was an extension of her own body. Incredible, she whispered. With a thought from Captain Chen, Gaia's Vengeance began to move. It rose slowly at first, its massive form surprisingly graceful. As it emerged from the hangar, its outer hull began to shift and change, blending with the night sky. On the ground, Dr. Zhao watched with tears in her eyes. Her impossible dream was now reality, rising into the stars. As Gaia's Vengeance accelerated upward, A cheer went up from the crowd. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity felt a glimmer of real hope. The strangest warship ever built by human hands was heading into battle, and the aliens had no idea what was coming for them. Gaia's vengeance soared through the night sky, leaving Earth's atmosphere behind. Inside the living ship, the crew marveled at the strange yet beautiful interior. Walls pulsed with bioluminescent light, and the air smelled fresh, like a forest after rain. Captain Sarah Chen sat at the helm, her hands resting on what looked like a small garden. She closed her eyes, focusing on their mission. The ship responded instantly, changing course with the thought. "This is incredible," she murmured. Dr. Amelia Joe's voice crackled over the comm system. "How does it feel, Captain?" "Like nothing I've ever experienced," Sarah replied. "It's as if the ship is part of me." Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights flashed throughout the ship. "Alien vessel detected," shouted the sensor operator, a marine biologist named Dr. Tanaka. He stared at his console, which resembled a coral reef. "It's huge." On the main viewing screen, a massive alien ship appeared. It was sleek, metallic, and bristling with weapons. Next to it, Gaia's vengeance looked like a strange organic blob. The alien ship noticed them. Green lights began to glow along its hull, charging weapons. "Evasive maneuvers," Captain Chen called out. But before she could react, the ship moved on its own. It twisted and stretched, easily dodging the incoming fire. The crew gasped as they felt the ship respond to the threat, almost like it was alive. "It's protecting us," said Dr. Rivera, the rainforest expert. "The ship, it knows we're in danger." Captain Chen nodded, impressed. "Okay, Gaia," she said, addressing the ship directly. "Let's show them what you can do." She focused her thoughts on attack. Instantly, the ship's outer hull began to change. What looked like giant leaves unfurled, collecting solar energy. In seconds, they unleashed a blinding beam of light at the alien vessel. The alien ship's shields flickered but held. It returned fire, landing a direct hit on Gaia's vengeance. The crew braced for impact, but instead of an explosion, they felt a strange ripple move through the ship. Where the alien weapon had struck, the hull was already regrowing, stronger than before. "Incredible," Dr. Joe's voice came over the comm. "It's adapting to their weapons." The battle continued, with Gaia's vengeance revealing new surprises at every turn. From the desert section, a storm of superheated sand blasted forth, clogging the alien ship's weapon ports. The rainforest area released a thick, living fog that confused the enemy sensors. But the alien vessel was powerful. It landed several more hits, each one causing the crew to worry. How much more could their strange ship take? Just when things looked bleakest, Dr. Rivera had an idea. "Captain," she called out, "the ship has been collecting data on the alien vessel. Maybe we can use that somehow." Captain Chen nodded. "Gaia," she said aloud, feeling slightly foolish for talking to a ship, "can you analyze the enemy's weaknesses?" To everyone's amazement, new information flooded their screens. The ship had indeed been studying the alien vessel, finding patterns and vulnerabilities in its attack style. "There," pointed Dr. Tanaka, "their main power core. If we hit it just right." Captain Chen understood. She focused all her thoughts on that one weak spot, channeling all of Gaia's vengeance's strange abilities into a single, powerful attack. The ship shuddered. From every section, forest, desert, ocean, and more, energy gathered. It coalesced into a swirling beam of pure life force. With a silent command from Sarah, the beam lashed out. It struck the alien ship's power core with pinpoint accuracy. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a brilliant flash, the enemy vessel exploded. Cheers erupted on the bridge of Gaia's vengeance. They had done it. Their first real test, and they had emerged victorious. As the debris of the alien ship floated past them, Captain Chen patted the console fondly. "Good job, Gaia," she said softly. You did well. The ship hummed in response, its lights pulsing happily. Back on Earth, in the control room, Dr. Zhao wiped tears from her eyes. Her crazy dream, her impossible ship, had just changed the course of the war. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had hope, and it came in the form of the strangest warship ever built. The news of Gaia's Vengeance's victory spread like wildfire across Earth. In hidden bunkers and secret bases, people celebrated. For the first time, humanity had a weapon that could fight back against the alien invaders. But the crew of Gaia's Vengeance had little time to rest. Reports came in of a large alien fleet heading towards one of Earth's last free cities, Sydney, Australia. We have to intercept them, Captain Sarah Chen told her crew. Sydney is counting on us. As they approached Earth's atmosphere, they saw the alien fleet. Dozens of sleek, metallic ships filled the sky. At the center was a massive vessel, easily 10 times the size of the others. That must be their command ship, said Dr. Tanaka, studying his coral-like sensor display. Captain Chen nodded grimly. Then that's our target. As Gaia's Vengeance entered the fray, the alien ships turned to face this strange new threat. They had never seen anything like it before. Was it a ship? A creature? Some bizarre combination of both. The first alien shots fired, streaking towards Gaia's Vengeance. But the living ship was ready. Its outer hull shifted and changed, becoming as reflective as a mirror. The alien weapons bounced off harmlessly, striking other ships in the fleet. Nice trick, Gaia, Captain Chen said, patting her console. She could feel the ship's excitement through their mental link. It was eager to show what else it could do. Chen focused her thoughts, and Gaia's Vengeance responded. From its ocean section, a massive tentacle emerged, glowing with bioluminescent light. It lashed out, wrapping around the nearest alien ship and crushing it like a tin can. The alien fleet's formation broke as ships scattered in confusion. They had never encountered a weapon like this before. Dr. Rivera, monitoring the ship's biological systems, called out, Captain, Gaia has an idea. It wants to try something new. Chen hesitated for just a moment. So far, trusting the ship's instincts had worked well. Do it, she ordered. Suddenly, Gaia's Vengeance began to change. Its entire structure seemed to melt and reform. The crew watched in amazement as their ship split into dozens of smaller autonomous units. Each piece was a miniature version of Gaia, capable of independent action, but still connected to the whole. It's like a school of fish, Dr. Tanaka said in awe. The swarm of mini-Gaias swept through the alien fleet. They attached themselves to enemy ships, growing and spreading like vines. Some alien vessels simply shut down, their systems overwhelmed. Others began to fire on their own allies, their controls hijacked by Gaia's living technology. In the command center back on Earth, Dr. Amelia Zhao watched the battle unfold on giant screens. She laughed with joy, tears in her eyes. It's working, she shouted. It's actually working. The alien command ship, seeing its fleet in chaos, turned its massive weapons on Gaia's Vengeance. A beam of energy, more powerful than anything they'd encountered before, lanced out. Captain Chen gritted her teeth, preparing for impact. But at the last second, all the mini-Gaias rushed back together. They reformed into a single ship just as the beam hit. The impact was tremendous. Gaia's Vengeance shuddered, and for a moment, all its lights went dark. The crew held their breath, fearing the worst. Then, slowly, the ship came back to life. But it was different now. It had absorbed the energy from the alien weapon, incorporating it into its own systems. Gaia's Vengeance glowed with power. Now, Captain Chen said softly, let's end this. With a thought from Chen, Gaia unleashed all its accumulated energy in one massive blast. The beam struck the alien command ship dead center. For a moment, the massive vessel hung in the sky, crackling with energy. Then it exploded in a dazzling display of light. The remaining alien ships, leaderless and outmatched, began to retreat. Cheers erupted from the crew of Gaia's Vengeance. They had done it. They had saved Sydney and dealt the alien invaders their first major defeat. As the sun rose over Australia, Gaia's Vengeance hovered protectively above the city. Its strange, ever-changing form was a beacon of hope for all who saw it. The tide of the war had finally turned. Humanity had a champion, and its name was Gaia's Vengeance. News of Gaia's Vengeance's victory over Sydney spread rapidly across the globe. In hidden bunkers and underground cities, humans gathered around makeshift screens, watching grainy footage of the strange, shape-shifting ship that had turned the tide of the war. Dr. Amelia Zhou found herself suddenly thrust into the spotlight. World leaders who had once dismissed her as a madwoman now begged for her help. "We need more ships like Gaia's Vengeance," the President of the United States told her during an emergency video conference. "How quickly can you build them?" Dr. Zhou smiled tiredly. "With the right resources, we can have a small fleet ready in a month." Around the world, factories that had been destroyed or abandoned were quickly repurposed. People worked day and night, following Dr. Zhou's intricate designs. Biologists cultivated the living components while engineers fabricated the mechanical parts. Meanwhile, Gaia's Vengeance and its crew continued to defend Earth. They flew from one hotspot to another, battling alien forces and buying time for the new fleet to be built. During a rare moment of peace, Captain Sarah Chen stood on the ship's observation deck, staring out at the stars. She felt a gentle pulse through the floor, Gaia's way of communicating. "I know," Sarah said softly, patting the wall. "I'm worried too, but we're not alone anymore." Weeks passed, and the alien invaders grew increasingly desperate. They had never expected such resistance from what they had thought was a primitive species. Their tactics became more aggressive, more ruthless. In what remained of Moscow, aliens unleashed a terrifying new weapon, a swarm of nanobots that devoured everything in their path. Gaia's Vengeance arrived just in time to see a wave of silvery destruction sweeping through the city. "How do we fight that?" Dr. Tanaka asked, his voice filled with horror. Captain Chen closed her eyes, connecting deeply with the ship. "Gaia," she whispered, "we need a miracle." The ship shuddered and then began to change. Its hull split open, releasing a cloud of spores. These spores, a fusion of advanced technology and engineered biology, met the nanobot swarm head-on. To everyone's amazement, Gaia's spores began to consume the alien nanobots. They grew, multiplied, and within hours had eliminated the threat entirely. This victory came at a cost, though. Gaia's Vengeance had expended enormous energy and resources. The ship needed time to heal and regrow. As they limped back to a hidden base for repairs, a transmission came through. Dr. Zhou's face appeared on the main screen, beaming with pride. "Captain," she said, "I have good news. The first ships of our new fleet are ready. And wait until you see them." Days later, Captain Chen stood in awe as 5 ships rose from hidden hangars around the world. Each was unique, adapted to its local environment. From the Amazon came a ship that looked like a giant mechanical tree. The Sahara produced a vessel that shimmered like a mirage. The Great Barrier Reef birthed a ship that pulsed with vibrant colors. These new ships joined Gaia's Vengeance in orbit. As they drew near each other, something incredible happened. The ships began to communicate, sharing information and abilities. "They're learning from each other," Dr. Zhou explained excitedly over the comm. "Each ship is unique, but together they form a powerful network." The timing couldn't have been better. Long-range sensors detected a massive alien armada approaching Earth. It seemed the invaders were preparing for one final, all-out assault. Captain Chen addressed the crews of all 6 ships. "This is it," she said, her voice steady. "Everything we've fought for comes down to this moment. We are Earth's last line of defense." As the alien armada came into view, blotting out the stars, Chen felt a tremor of fear. But then she felt something else, a wave of determination and courage flowing from Gaia and the other living ships. She smiled, placing her hand on the pulsing console. "Let's show them what Earth can do," she said. As one, the 6 ships moved forward to meet the alien threat. They were outnumbered, but not outmatched, for they carried with them the ingenuity, adaptability, and indomitable spirit of humanity. The final battle for Earth was about to begin. The sky above Earth blazed with light as the final battle began. 6 living ships, led by Gaia's Vengeance, faced an alien armada that seemed to stretch forever. Captain Sarah Chen's voice rang out across all channels. "Remember, we fight not just for ourselves, but for every living thing on Earth. We are Earth's children, and today we stand as one." The alien fleet opened fire, a storm of energy weapons lighting up space. But the Earth ships were ready. They moved as one, dodging and weaving with impossible grace. It was as if they were performing a cosmic dance. Gaia's Vengeance led the charge, its hull shifting and changing to absorb and redirect enemy fire. The Amazon ship extended massive, branch-like appendages, ensnaring alien vessels and crushing them. The Sahara ship shimmered, creating mirages that confused enemy targeting systems. From the Great Barrier Reef ship came swarms of tiny coral-like drones. They attached to alien hulls, growing and spreading, shutting down systems. The Arctic ship unleashed blasts of extreme cold, freezing enemy ships in place. The Himalayan ship projected force fields that seemed as solid and unbreakable as the mountains themselves. On Earth, people watched the battle through whatever technology still worked. In hidden bunkers and ruined cities, humans held their breath, hoping against hope. Dr. Amelia Zhao stood in the control room, her eyes darting between dozens of screens. "It's working," she whispered. "They're actually pushing them back." But the aliens weren't done yet. From the heart of their fleet emerged a ship larger than any they'd seen before. It pulsed with dark energy, and when it fired, it wiped out hundreds of miles of Earth's orbit clean of debris. "That must be their command ship," Captain Chen said, gritting her teeth. "We have to take it out." The 6 Earth ships gathered, forming a ring. They began to pulse with energy, each one glowing brighter and brighter. Those watching from Earth saw what looked like a new star being born. Suddenly, all 6 ships fired at once, their combined energy lancing out towards the alien command ship. The blast hit home, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a silent flash, the massive alien vessel cracked in two. A cheer went up from every human throat, from the ships in space to the deepest bunkers on Earth. But their celebration was premature. The alien command ship, in its death throes, began to fall towards Earth. Its mass was so great that it would devastate the planet on impact, ending all life. "No," Captain Chen whispered. She could feel Gaia's desperation matching her own. They hadn't come this far to lose everything now. As if sharing one mind, all 6 Earth ships moved at once. They flew towards the falling alien ship, their hulls glowing white-hot as they entered the atmosphere. "What are they doing?" someone in the control room asked. Dr. Zhao watched, tears in her eyes. "They're saving us," she said softly, "one last time." The Earth ships surrounded the falling alien vessel. Their hulls began to melt and flow, encasing the massive ship in a cocoon of living metal and energy. As they fell, the cocoon grew smaller and smaller, compressing the alien ship. Just before impact, there was a flash of light so bright it turned night to day across half the planet. When it faded, there was nothing left but a gentle rain of glowing particles, drifting harmlessly to the ground. Silence fell across the Earth. The remaining alien ships, seeing their leaders destroyed, began to retreat. After 7 long years of war, it was over. Humanity had won. In the days that followed, an amazing discovery was made. The glowing particles from the final explosion weren't just debris. Wherever they fell, life began to flourish. Ruined landscapes were reborn, as if the Earth itself was healing. And in 6 locations around the world, the Amazon, the Sahara, the Great Barrier Reef, the Arctic, the Himalayas, and the place where Gaia's vengeance was born. Massive seed pods were found. Inside each one, a new living ship was growing. Dr. Zhao laughed when she saw them. Of course, she said, life finds a way. As humanity began to rebuild, they did so with a new understanding of their place in the universe. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger, not just as a species, but as part of the living tapestry of Earth itself. The stars beckoned, and this time, when humanity reached out to them, they did so not as conquerors, but as guardians of life in all its wondrous forms.